It helps if you unmute the microphone. See, I'm learning how Twitch works. Good for me. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's Jason, the Pasta Doctor, and we are doing, oh, you know what? I forgot to switch it. Hold on. Let's see if I can do this on the fly, because it says living intentionally, and we're not doing living intentionally today. We're doing shower thoughts. There we go. I fixed it while I was streaming live. Look at me go. I hope everybody's having an amazing afternoon and that you are just feeling incredibly loved and blessed. Today on this stream, we are talking about value domains, and I'm excited about this. I mentioned it when we did our living intentionally on Tuesday. And so I wanted to pop in and do a stream where we just talk about value domains. So I say I have a viewer. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for being here. This is going to be a lot of information. So hang on and enjoy. You can always go back and listen to it again if you want. But I was talking about value domains. And so instead of me spending forever trying to explain it, I'm just going to get into the notes that I've got so I can share with everybody what value domains are, why we use them, how you create them for yourself. And then I will end up sharing a few of my own with you all so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, if you're watching this later on, awesome. If you're watching it on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe. If you're on Twitch, feel free to follow. I would love it if you followed. Or if you felt the need to give to sub, I wouldn't complain. But as we dive in to value domains, it's really cool. We identify our values so we can make better decisions. So if I'm looking down a lot, it's because I have a bunch of notes that I want to share with everybody today, just so you know what I'm doing. So understanding your values can make decisions and goal setting a lot easier. During stressful times, it can be enormously helpful to explore your values. Having a strong set of what your values are can help you manage stress better by motivating you to do what matters to you, even when things are difficult. For example, it's much easier to get out of bed in the morning if you remember that it's important for you to build relationships and be a good teammate to your coworkers. Then, if your reason for getting out of bed is because I have to, right, it's much better than that, right? So if you value having good relationships, you get out of bed in the morning with a desire to build stronger relationships instead of just getting out of bed because you have to. So exploring our values also helps guide us when we're facing tough decisions or when we're feeling stuck in where we want to go with our lives. And so that's the biggest reason that we're doing this today on Tuesday. And if you missed that, you can check it out on Twitch. It should still be up. Or you can check it out on Pasta Doctor on YouTube. So what are values? Values are personally chosen life directions. They are your inner compass. Now, if you're like me and you have a strong faith in God through Jesus Christ, you would probably pick your values based on your faith. If faith is not something that's important to you, you can explore it. We do that a lot on this channel. But if that's not a part of your life at the moment, then you still can create amazing values and various values domains that can be your personally chosen life directions that become your inner compass. So why are values important? Well, with all the demands of everyday life, it's easy to lose sight of what's important. So values give you kind of an anchor. Our actions can be driven by our immediate feelings or old habits, and therefore values domains help us have our actions driven by something more than that. Values serve as a guide to help us to know what to do instead. Instead of maybe reacting to a situation, we can consider our values and how we want to respond in a situation. Once you identify your values, you can set goals, specific actions to pursue them. You can't easily control what you think and feel in any moment, but you can always choose your actions based on your values. And values dignify the normal pain that comes with living and provide motivation even when things are hard. So this is the importance of value domains. And let me give you just a really quick, brief difference between reacting and responding. I have done that before in one of the chapters on living intentionally, but it's good to visit it here. So a reaction, right, are what we do as people usually have to do with what we think, what we feel, and then how we act. We call that the cognitive behavioral therapy triangle. What you think and what you feel and how you act. Now, we very rarely have any control over how we feel, right? We feel how we feel, and our emotions and feelings are valid and valuable. But we don't have any control over them. Something happens, maybe we feel angry, maybe we feel scared, maybe we feel frustrated or anxious or whatever it might be. We don't really have a lot of control over that. What we think. Usually what we think then is based on how we feel, and we don't always have a lot of control over that, especially what we think at first. Now, as we think through something, as we explore a problem or a specific issue or a decision, how we think can change. It can be not so much controlled as much as influenced by what we're bringing into our minds, what we're consuming, what we're focusing on. But nevertheless, thinking, a lot like feeling, especially in an immediate moment, a reaction, isn't something that we tend to have a ton of control over. What we do have control over is our actions, the third part of the triangle. And if you remember, a couple weeks ago, we talked about wholeness and well-being, and we talked about how our actions influence other parts of our lives, right? Everything is connected. So just like our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being are all connected, our actions, thoughts, and feelings are all connected. Now, if you react, then you allow your immediate feelings and your immediate thoughts, right, what happens in the moment, to turn into an action right away. Maybe it's something you say that you regret later. Maybe it's walking out of a room and slamming a door. Maybe it's quitting a job. Who knows? But that is a reaction. You feel something, you think something, and you respond, or you just get it out and you're done. A response takes time. A response is different than a reaction. A response, you consider what you're feeling, you consider what you're thinking, and then you can use value domains to decide how you want to respond. And so responding and reacting are two very different things. I wanted to make that clear for you. So what are value domains? And it's helpful to articulate values in different domains. Here are some examples: family, career, friendship, community, spirituality, citizenship, relationship, learning, fun and leisure, health and fitness. You can use those or you can pick others. Within these domains, it's helpful to identify words that capture how you want to be or act on an ongoing basis. So you might use words like adventurous, open, curious, hardworking, steady, strong, empathetic, loving, caring, passionate, focused, friendly, fun-loving, humorous, energetic, persistent, engaged, thoughtful, collaborative, calm, or visionary, right? So maybe you have a value domain of family. And then you want to use a value word like loving, because when it comes to your family, you want to be loving, right? Makes sense? They go together pretty quickly and pretty easily. So with that in mind, then we come to what we call value phrases. So in addition to value words, it's also helpful to identify phrases that capture how you want to be or act on an ongoing basis. Here are a few examples. I want to be a team player. I value helping others, taking good care of my health, and having a great time. I want to keep my family in mind in whatever I do. I want to engage the world with curiosity and openness. I want to make the most of every day. You could add, like, we're going to go back and use loving and family. I want to, or I value, let's say it that way, I value always acting in a loving way toward my family. So then if something happens in your family, you get into a fight with your spouse or your significant other or a parent or a sibling or something like that, instead of a knee-jerk reaction, something can happen. You feel upset, angry, whatever it might be, and you're thinking, boy, I need to do something. And then you remember my value domain. I value always being loving towards my family. And then you respond according to that value. I hope that makes sense to you. So values and goals. So with a value, you cannot achieve or obtain it, right? And don't feel that that's not meant to discourage you. You cannot obtain or achieve a value. Values are chosen life directions. Goals are places we might arrive as we move in those directions. And so you can set goals within a value domain, and then you can achieve that goal. But values themselves, you don't achieve. Values and feelings. You may not feel adventurous all the time, but you can always act in an adventurous way whenever you choose. So maybe one of your values is exploring. And when you explore, and maybe that means travel or hiking or camping or surfing or scuba diving or who knows, but maybe your value is to be a person who explores. And your statement is, when I explore, I want to be adventurous. But you're not going to feel adventurous all the time. Go back to our example with love and family. You're not always going to feel loving towards your family. Something that I tell people, and I've told people a lot over the years in counseling and preaching and other things that I do, is that love is not a feeling, right? Love can evoke strong feelings, but love is a choice. We choose to love people. The feelings aren't always there. That's something good to remember. Choosing your values. You get to decide how you want to act or how you want to be on an ongoing basis. It's up to you. And so then you use your values as a yardstick. How do you know if a value works for you? Ask yourself if it brings vitality and meaning to your life, even when things are hard and stressful. So ask yourself if that value brings vitality and meaning to your life, even when things are hard and stressful. And so you can use that value as a yardstick. And you know what? I want you to notice it doesn't say, or I didn't say, does it make you happy? Remember, happiness is temporary and based on a situation. Joy is different. Joy, really, for a person like me who is a follower of Jesus, comes from God. But happiness is always going to be temporary and based on a situation. So it's not if the value makes you happy. That's not the yardstick. That's not how we measure if it's working or not. But does it bring you vitality and meaning? That's what really matters when we're using values as a yardstick. And so we use values to make decisions that we are proud of. So you can make tough decisions that you can feel proud of using a values-based framework. Having a decision-making framework in place is helpful when you're faced with bigger questions. Should I move to a new place? Should I start or end a new relationship? Should I look for a new job? Should I have a child? And these are stressful, anxiety-provoking situations, and there are many others. And I'm sure you could fill in the blanks of what some of those others would be in your own specific life right now. And it can easily feel like everything will fall apart if we don't choose correctly. So we make long lists of pros and cons. We seek advice from everyone around us and endlessly think over it. And before we know it, we can become stuck in indecision. Having a framework can help us get unstuck. And one particular framework that's helpful is a framework that is based on your values. So, what are values? Well, your values are what you want your life to be about. They act like a compass, pointing you toward the life you want to build. For example, you may decide that your values at work are to be dependable, creative, and a team player. Values do not include things like being successful or to get a promotion. Those are goals. Values specify a direction, not a specific destination. But if you use them as a framework for decision making, they can help you achieve your goals. Now, your values are what you want your life to be about, acting like a compass pointing you toward the life you want to build. So let's look at an example of how your values might guide you, say, in a relationship. If you decide that your values are to be supportive, authentic, and to connect, you can bring that to every moment with your partner, whether you're going for a walk, planning a trip, or having an argument. Even if you're angry, you can still be supportive, authentic, and connected. Values inform how you act, not how you feel, and they don't specify actions. There are a multitude of ways to act in alignment with your values in any situation. So let's apply values to making big decisions, which we mentioned a moment ago. I told you I have a lot of notes. So let's connect this to a bigger life decision, maybe something that's keeping you up at night. If you're deciding whether or not to stay in your relationship, you might ask yourself how present your values are in that relationship. Does it feel possible to be supportive, authentic, and connected with your partner in an ongoing way? Your partner might have his or her own values. Are they compatible with yours? When things get tough, do you still feel like you're both pulling in the same overall direction? The answer might not be immediately clear. Again, values don't tell you exactly what to do. They connect you to the big picture, who you want to be and what you want your life to be about. They also dignify the pain and discomfort that comes with making difficult decisions and going through difficult problems. If you make a choice based on your values, it may still hurt, but you will know your choice is grounded in something that is deeply meaningful to you. So what might you consider in the process of making values-based decisions? Don't wait for the ideal feeling. It likely won't feel completely comfortable when you make any big decision. Change is always hard. We often fall into the trap of thinking that making the right choice will immediately eliminate all stress and anxiety. That is not true. But the reality is we will move continuously toward building the lives we want. Uncomfortable and or painful feelings will accompany us. For instance, if you decide to switch jobs, there will be an adjustment period. No matter how good the new job is, there will probably be things you don't like about it. Number two, acknowledge that you are always making choices. Whether or not you make a big decision and act on it, you are always making choices. For example, if you're considering leaving your job, until you make a final decision, you are choosing to stay. Doing nothing is still a choice, but you can still make small choices to act on your values while you are deciding. Whether that means attending to your own self-care by taking periodic breaks, supporting your team through a busy season, or being honest with your coworkers. Something that is valuable when using values to make decisions is to imagine what your future self will think of your decision. Try imagining yourself 20 years from now looking back on your life today. What would this decision look like in the overall arc of your life? For example, let's say you value being courageous and bold. If you were to fast forward 20 years, what would that older you think about the decision to switch jobs? A bold yet positive move, or a choice driven by fear and self-doubt? Sometimes connecting to a wiser version of ourselves, one that has a better sense of the big picture, can lead us to knowing the right decision. And so if you approach decisions with a values-based framework, you'll likely feel more empowered because you're acting with integrity. Some decisions won't work out and you'll have to readjust, but along the way you will grow and learn, and you'll know that whatever you decide, your choices are based on what is most meaningful to you. Now, there is a really useful tool Somebody sent me a message. Hello, Harry David L. Thank you for chiming in on the discussion. I will be honest with you. I do know who Krishna is, or I do know about Krishna. I tell you though, I am. Oh, that's interesting. My box didn't show up in my video. That's why I didn't see it. All right, let's adjust. Oop, look at me. I got smaller, but there you go. Now, what if I? So is it really annoying to watch somebody on Twitch adjust their formatting in the middle of a video? I hope not. Oh, it looks like something happened with my live stream. Sorry about that. That's really weird. I am not sure what exactly is going on here. It says I'm live, but it said my browser. If my browser doesn't fix that, then, oh, there we go. It looks like I'm back. So hopefully, yeah, thank you very much. Not exactly sure what happened there, but I'm glad I'm back. So to go back to Harry David's question, and then we're going to continue talking about making decisions with values. Yes, I do know who Krishna is. I am personally not a believer in Krishna. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that his death and resurrection is what saves us. And he is very, very important to me. And so, yeah, there you go. Thank you, though, for making a comment and for hopping on to our onto my stream today. I appreciate it very greatly. Now, I am actually looking for something I want to share with you. And wow, it's just not showing up here for me because it's really cool. All right, I'm going to do something that's probably not terribly helpful. I'm going to go search it on Google while we talk about this. There is a tool you can use and I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it's basically, it's a visual map that allows you to decide or figure out if you are making decisions based on your values. And it has a very specific name that is completely jumping out of my head. Essentially, though, it's a triangle. And the idea is that you put your value on one side and your decision on the other side of the triangle, right? And if you put your value on one side and your decision on the other side of the triangle, what you're then going to do is decide, well, if you make the decision, does it get you closer to the top of the triangle? Does it move you closer to your values? Or if you don't, or if you make that decision, will it move you farther away from your values? I'm sure you can Google it and find it. I don't want to spend a lot of time looking for it. I should have looked it up before we started. Sorry about that. But the whole idea is when you make a decision, you figure out which of your values domains that decision falls under. And then you decide if that decision moves you closer to your values or farther away from them. And again, like I said, it has a very specific name, a name which I don't have in front of me right now. But it's very helpful when making decisions. Now, I told you at the beginning or earlier on that I would I would share with you my own value domains. And so I think that might be helpful so you can kind of get an idea of what I do or how I do it when it comes to my own value domains. So I have, if I remember correctly, I have them all written down, of course, because that's just wise. I have 6 value domains that I try to operate under at any given time. So my first is spirituality, and then my values statement says this: I value my spirituality, which involves a growing relationship with God by being with Jesus and becoming more like him. I value rest, being more present with God in every moment while learning to not let my thoughts and feelings take control of my behaviors. Right? So that's my first value domain and the value statement that I use alongside of it. My second value domain is relationships. And my value statement is this: I value my relationships, especially my relationship with my beautiful wife, Leah, and our children. I value being more present in my relationships and being intentional about these relationships. So that's how I approach my relationships values domain. For my third one, I have health. And now under health, and you can do this however you choose, but I did both emotional and physical health all at once. Remember, we are emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. Spirituality has its own values domain. So I put emotional and physical health under one. And here's my value statement for that: I value my emotional and physical health. And therefore, I am going to make decisions like eating better, exercising regularly, losing weight, staying away from things that do not contribute to my health in order to be more physically healthy. I value my emotional health and will embrace my emotions, but not let them control me while growing in my ability to be emotionally regulated. Now, there's a ton of stuff in there that I could unpack, but I am not going to read to you every single thing that I have under my values domains and each individual thing. That would be a lot. It'd be a lot for you. And, well, there's stuff in there I'm not going to share with you. Love you all, but no. So my next value domain is my career. And my value statement is: I value my career and calling from God. Therefore, I value a position where I can do what I am gifted to do, make enough money doing it, where I can have a future I look forward to that impacts other people's lives positively, all while glorifying God. And I can say, I'm very grateful for this, that I indeed have that job. It's pretty fantastic. I know not everybody has that. So maybe as you work through your values, you might work on something like that and figuring out what you need to do or where you need to go in that aspect of your life. My fifth value domain is personal growth. And my values statement is this: I value my personal growth. And therefore, I value holistic health, which includes being psychologically and emotionally well, and engaging in things like reading and writing that will help me grow personally. I could have put in there, or maybe I should put in there, that I just want to be a lifelong learner. I love to learn. I want to have a growth mindset in my life at all times. And if you've never looked into the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, I highly encourage you to do so. We're not going to take the time to get into that particular can of worms today. But if you ever wanted to, you certainly could. Finally, I have leisure as my sixth value domain. And I wrote for my statement: I value leisure time, and so I value becoming holistically healthy so I can do the things I enjoy, like pickleball and learning how to race walk. I put that in there because I was watching the Olympics. And if you've never seen Olympic race walking, it is pretty awesome. So the whole point of values domains, right, is you're going to come up with a list. And you could have 6 like mine, you could have 8, you could have 4. I don't know. They're your values. And then under those values, you're going to talk about, write it down. I first did mine in a notebook, and then I put it on my laptop. But you're going to write about things that are important to you under those values domains. Then you can set up goals. You can do SMART goals or some other fun word, acronym to create your goals that will help, that will move you towards something within that values domain. So if it's your career, maybe you need to have more education to advance your career. And so one of your goals could be to take the classes you need to take, or the trainings you need to take, or the certifications you need to master in order to move forward in your career. And so you set yourself a goal, something, the SMART goals that are measurable and attainable and so on and so forth. But like, okay, in the next 6 months, I'm going to take one class that moves me closer to my career goal or something like that. Or towards a goal that's under my career domain, or maybe it's, I'm married, so I'll use that as an example. Maybe for me, it's, I value my relationship with my wife. So I'm going to set a goal. We actually did this, that we're going to have a date night at least once every 2 weeks. And I'm going to keep up that goal. We tend to have a date more than once every 2 weeks, but that becomes super important to me. And so that's a measurable goal. It's an attainable goal. It is time-based, right? It falls under the SMART goal category. Maybe for me, I talked about my physical health in there, about losing weight and exercising. And so for me, my goal is to exercise at least 5 days a week, which most weeks I accomplish. I included in that playing pickleball. So I play pickleball I try to play 3 times, but I play pickleball at least a couple times a week. And I try to do good with my diet. So I limit sugar. I follow an intermittent fasting schedule. You don't have to do any of those things if that's not your goal or if that's not your value. But if you value something like that, then you set a goal. Over the next 6 months or the next 3 months or the next month or the next week, I want to exercise 3 times a week. And then you'll know if you did it. You can look back. Oh, this week I only exercised twice. Or this week, mine is 5 times a week. This week I only exercised 4 times. Okay, then I didn't quite meet my goal. That's okay. I keep working at it. It's not about being judgmental or harsh or self-condemning. It's about continuing to work at those things under your values domains, because I value my health. So I'm going to continue working on goals that I set under that value domain to help me move forward in that specific value. So that is what value domains are all about. That's what they look like. That's how they sound. Now, I'm going to tell you something. You can go back and listen to this several times. You could feel free to do so, right? I'm not telling you not to. That's not going to help you do it yourself. I actually read several books while I was working on my values domains. I listened to a multitude of podcasts. I watched a couple TED Talks. I did all kinds of stuff. I even talked to my therapist at the time about it, and sat down. And the first thing I did, right, this was step number 1, is I figured out what my value domains would be. And so I identified those 6, and that was the first thing I did. All I did is in a notebook, I wrote down those 6 value domains. Then underneath each one of those value domains, the next thing I did is I wrote down 5 or 6 things, 4 or 5, 3 or 4, whatever it might be, things that I thought would be useful for that domain in my life. So like under health, I wrote exercising regularly, right? Very simple. But then what I did after that is then I wrote a bunch of statements, goals really is what I set out. How am I going to exercise regularly? How am I going to eat better? How am I going to spend more time with my wife? And I filled all of those in for each of the things that I wrote down under the main heading. So I had the value. I had the things that were important to me under that value. Then I wrote down goals for each of those values that I could work on regularly. And then I wrote a value statement for each value, something that encompassed the whole thing. And that value statement then becomes the yardstick we were talking about, really the guide for how I make decisions under each of those values or under each of those domains. And so I would encourage you, if this is interesting to you, encouraging to you, if it's something you think would be good for you in your life, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to take some time, Google it, buy a book, listen to the podcast, find the TED Talk, go on YouTube and find somebody who does a much longer video on the specifics of getting into value domains, and then do that for yourself, because I think you would find that you would have well, it's just really incredible what it can do for you, how it can help you make decisions, how it can help you respond instead of reacting. Value domains are powerful. They really are. So I hope that this video, well, I'm on Twitch right now. So if you're watching me right now, to my one faithful viewer out there, thanks for being here the whole time. And if this is useful for you, I encourage you to pursue it. If you're watching this later on, either on Twitch or on YouTube, I just hope it's beneficial for you and you get to take some time to look into the things that are truly important to you and goals that you can set to help those things guide the direction of your life. Well, that's all I got. I hope you have an amazing rest of your Thursday. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. God bless.